Welcome, welcome, Wise Chat. Producer Henry here with a bad case of Tuesdayitis. I know nobody got their Mondays checked yesterday because the doctor was out, but Michael is in today. Go ahead, get comfy, like the stream. Share the link. Get some friends who also need some relief from work today watching on the job. We'll be right there with you to talk a bit about everything. See you in a moment. Welcome, welcome, Uncivilized Games, and yes, definitely more likely than you think. That's why you gotta keep an eye on the channel. Sometimes these pop up where it's Lux and I, or it's Michael and Lux, or we do something on a Tuesday or a Friday. Oh no, we're interrupting Russell Brand talking about pandemic still? Are you a time traveler? Like it's 2024, man. Like I don't like diminishing that COVID is still ongoing, but what pandemic was a moment in time that is past. I hear you on that, Aerith 4. We'll probably get in that to a bit today on stream, but rest assured, you're heard. I saw Deadpool and the Wolverine DSL, and it is a very vapid first-hand text with a lot of very interesting intertextual kind of commentary going on as far as like what our relationship with pop culture and superheroes and all that is. There's some very interesting stuff with the innuendo and the homophobia of it going on as well, but I'll have to save that for another time.
Welp. It's Tuesday. We're not normally here on Tuesdays, but today we're here on Tuesday. And we're here on Tuesday to do a makeup stream because we weren't around on Monday, which was yesterday. We weren't around Monday, which was yesterday, because I was out of town. I was out of town in the state of Minnesota. And today, a Minnesotan got the vice presidential nomination, whatever it is, for the Democratic Party of the United States of America. And, I was driving here today thinking, is it too much if we talk about this? Are people just going too far down this hole of like, why do you guys talk politics? Da, da, da. But you know what? Like, it's an election year, guys. I got to be honest. It happens once every 4 years. We're a few months out from the actual election. I think we're just under 3 months. I'm glad we skipped yesterday so that Sean could be here. Gotta have our regular Deadhead / Jam Band correspondent. But so if anyone is kind of thinking like, is Wisecrack gotten too political pilled? Just remember, like, it's an election year. It's a weird election. And there are cultural implications for said election. So, just saying that for any of you that are like, get back to talking about whatever it is we used to talk about or that we still talk about. I don't know. But just wanted to say that to some of you so that you weren't stressed out. And yeah, we are, to be clear, we are sad that Chris Maverick is not the VP pick. I think Chris Maverick, representing both education, representing the state of Pennsylvania, representing, I think having an actual wrestler in the White House. Jesse Ventura tried, but he could have been the real guy. But we're just here. I'm excited to be here, actually. I had a long day yesterday. I'm going to tell you about it, and then we'll get into the formalities of the show, but we'll let people wander into the class. This reminds me when I used to be a professor, and normally the first 5 to 10 minutes, the students were kind of wandering in. I would just talk, I'd shoot the shit. But, yeah, yesterday, I got up, enjoyed a morning at my uncle's cabin in Minnesota. I then drove 2.5 hours in a pretty torrential rainstorm to drop my wife and daughter off at the airport. Then I had to drive our rental car back because we picked the cheapest rental car option. And I'm going to give you all some advice now. If you're ever traveling and you're getting a rental car and there's one place that's way cheaper than the others and you're like, this seems too good to be true, there's going to be a catch. And in this case, the catch was the rental car company we chose was not actually located at the Minneapolis St. Paul airport, because they took you in a shuttle, and then the shuttle got on the highway and had an off-site thing about 5 miles away where the cars were. On the way there, this happened, and we get in the shuttle with my 1-year-old daughter. The guy takes off before we put her in a fucking car seat, and I tell my wife, just hold on to her. It's going to be around the corner. And then we get on the freeway, and we're just raw dogging it with a 1-year-old, trying to get her in a car seat as they're driving. So yesterday, I had to drop the wife and child off, drive to the rental car place myself, wait for 20 minutes, get shoved into some van. Almost had a panic attack in the back. Her boy was doing well. Then I got to take a flight, but because it was raining so much, flight was delayed a little bit, sat on the runway for an hour, a lot of turbulence, all with a 1-year-old who seemed like she was having a kinetic experience bouncing around the plane like a psychopath. Then got to wait outside LAX for 30 to 40 minutes for a shuttle that was packed to go to a parking garage to get in the car to drive 45 minutes home to then have the daughter have a demonic experience. We're trying to put her down. So, it was a long day, a long morning. Then I got to drive an hour this morning to get here. But I'm excited to be back talking to you all. I missed you all very much. But we're all okay. And most importantly, my daughter was formally baptized in the lake waters of Minnesota. I don't know what religion that means, but there you go. Peter, we're sorry that your work is trying to shut you down. But we're back. It was very nice to take a little mini vacation with the family. In the meantime, we put out a video on Friday about tech messiahs. So I would check that out if you haven't already. It was a fun one. It took a lot of self-control for me on Friday to not look at how the video is doing, to not respond to comments, to not do anything. I don't normally do that stuff. So there you go. That's my journey to arrive here. And I'll be honest, hanging out in Minnesota for recent days, I got pretty Walz Pilled, and I'm excited.
Yeah, what was it like on the ground? All I hear, is relayed through the internet. So
listen, let's step off the internet for a second. Let's get back to me.
I want to reiterate that I'm not an AI. I have touched grass. I'm just asking you for, chat reasons.
Yeah. I was on the ground. Urinator, thanks for bringing that up. On the ground in Minnesota, guys, a lot was happening. There was a lot of discussion about Walz. Now, here's what the scuttlebutt was in America's heartland. In the land of 1,000 lakes, the land of Prince, the land of the Hold Steady, the land of the resurging Minnesota Timberwolves, the land of a cold bottle of Grain Belt, the land of biting your teeth into a Juicy Lucy. Now, what they were saying is that they love this guy. They love Walz because He's, the sort of guy that knows how to like fix a truck. He hunts. He, used to be in the military. He's also a former teacher. He's gotten a lot done practically. He represents the sort of person who's kind of just like a normal dad bro, but who really, really thinks everyone should just have like a better life. So they love the stuff that he's done in the state, legalized marijuana, expanded paid family leave, put, Roe v. Wade into law, made sure that breakfast and lunch are free for all students at all schools. A lot of like practical stuff from a dude who by no means is like a leftist or something like that. He also has a vegetarian daughter, so that's fun. And so they like this guy. This was their two reservations. One, they were like, well, it kind of sucks if he becomes VP. He doesn't get to be our guy anymore. So they were bummed about that. Their other thing they were saying is that, and my uncle said this, shout out to Uncle Terry. Uncle Terry said, if Walz is the VP pick, that the first thing that the Republicans are going to do is show video after video of Minneapolis burning in the wake of the George Floyd killing and say that, is this what you want America to be? And I will say, in the first email that the Trump campaign put out, they literally had some line about how Walz wants America to burn to the ground or something. So shouts to Uncle Terry.
I think
but that's yeah. Go ahead, Henry.
I think that can backfire on them if they're not careful, though, because if they start going like, well, what about George Floyd? Like, you could turn around and be like, well, when did Republicans start caring about the victims of racism in America?
Yeah. Oh my God, Sean Harriman just brought up Corey Wong. Corey Wong, a great Minneapolis musician. Who are their great Minneapolis cultural figures? We got the Hold Steady. We have Atmosphere. Is it Deza? Who's the female rapper from Minneapolis? Is really good. Trying to think of other people. Everyone shout out your favorite Minnesota things in the chat if you have them. Yeah, someone said like they weren't going to do that to Kamala anyways. I mean, but yeah, then I guess you have the thing on the other side where for more left-leaning voters who are skeptical of the Democrats, you could then say, well, yeah, Walz is the one who helped make sure Derek Chauvin went to jail. So you look at it either way. Bob Dylan is from outside of Duluth, so there you go. But sorry, Amp Organs. I just saw that Sean said Corey Wong. My bad. We said Prince. To be fair, obviously I already said Prince. Shouts to Paisley Park. And someone just said cheese. But yeah, so I think that was the on the ground feeling. And I will say that my family and some people I know in Minnesota who I love very much represent a type of person who I think we don't normally think about on the internet. And these are people who, Walker Art Museum rips, people who like really are kind of like Midwestern moderate Democrats who like truly do want folks to just like hang out and have a good life, but are a little bit like, let's not go too crazy with it. A type of person who we don't often think about on the internet. And yeah, Trampled by Turtles is great. And I will say for today's thumb, like obviously From the Window to the Walls involves a slight mispronunciation of his name, but it's too fun. But then for the title I put Take This Waltz to make it fun. But there you go. You got different options. But was excited to be there for this all to happen. And of course, the other option, Judy Garland from Minnesota, the other option for VP pick seemed to be Josh Shapiro. The really cynical, unfair, shitty take is going to be that the reason he didn't get it was because of anti-Semitism. I will boldly say it's not that. And I will boldly say for a few reasons. One, very corporate friendly guy, was involved with a lot of corporate tax cuts in Pennsylvania, was a big friend of Wall Street, which is why the consultant class liked him a lot. Also a school voucher guy, someone who wasn't really in support of public education. The teachers unions have a pretty healthy dose of influence in politics, and Walz, well, just so happens to have been a former Minnesota public school teacher. And then, of course, Shapiro, very student protesters who were protesting against, Israel's war on Gaza, and that gets flipped into anti-Semitism in a fun way. Obviously, he's a Jewish guy as well, but I think there's good reasons for that to be the case. And the reason this is all so surprising is that, let me see one thing. Another reason it's so surprising is because someone like Shapiro was the pick of like the DC consultant class, whereas Walz seemed to be more, internet folks liked him, teachers unions liked him. Bernie Sanders was. This is another thing I was going to say. I was watching the local news in Minnesota. I think it was KARE 11, the NBC affiliate out of the Twin Cities, and turned on the news this weekend in between watching the Olympics, and there was Bernard Sanders with Ilhan Omar on the local news, just kind of being like, "This is why Tim Walz he's a pragmatic guy," So it was like, wow, fucking Bernie was out here in Minnesota talking about him as well. Yeah, Allie brought up Naysayers Records. So there we go. That's the sort of initial scuttlebutt, so to speak, about what's happening politically and how it's no exaggeration to say I was incredibly involved in the process by grace of being in the state of Minnesota while it all happened. Henry, have you ever been in the state of Minnesota?
I have not.
I think it's a good place.
Closest I've been is Michigan, which I enjoyed.
Oh, Michigan, great place as well. Great place as well. And I'll be curious to see, what kind of happens, in terms of, how this all gets spun. If this really, because I think the question too, I'm curious if people in the chat think about this. Henry, I'm curious if you think about this. Like, how much does a VP pick affect an election?
Yeah.
Like what effect does this really have on things? I don't
feel this
know if it does.
Yeah, I feel the energy about this is less that like the vice president is important and that people feel like the Democratic Party is listening. And I feel that like that's hitting people around my, 30s age as, people have witnessed like the process over and over again, kind of like make the dumb, stupid choice. But I also understand that's why like the younger people probably aren't as mystified or like in love or wondering why people are going crazy over this.
Yeah. So, we'll see. I think one thing that'll be interesting. Oh, I'm going to add a video to our watch. Go ahead.
Sarah Palin tanked McCain pretty hard. I don't know. I don't know if there's like a consistent trend in like vice presidencies being something that will make or break if it's a bad choice. But like there have been one or two I can think of, like the way this energizes, the way Palin kind of deflated the McCain campaign.
Yeah. Well, and I even think you could argue that like, hold on one second. I just want to see something. Okay. I think you could even argue that, what was the guy's name? Oh, I think you just said it. The Hillary guy? Tim
Kaine?
Yeah. Like, I think he definitely didn't help.
Yeah. He was a pretty bad choice. It doesn't, I mean, they didn't win the ticket, so I guess that's why the mark isn't there. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what this does. The thing we know is like the Walz thing isn't going to. Here's what it's not going to hurt. I don't know what it's going to help. It's not going to turn away younger voters and progressive voters. So that maybe is good, maybe isn't. It's not going to hurt things with Midwestern and Rust Belt voters. This isn't going to be someone that's going to like turn off people in Michigan and Wisconsin and Western Pennsylvania. Not someone who's going to turn off educators and people that, teachers or things like that. It does create an interesting contrast with JD Vance. And I did, so on the car ride over, guys, because I do the research. Not only was I on the ground in Minnesota reporting this story, I like using the word reporter because I just now looked at the comments from Friday's video for the first time, and someone said, "This guy's a horrible reporter," which I just think is funny. I'm not a reporter. I was a reporter though on the Lion's Tail, my high school newspaper. So shouts to that, and shouts to Miss Jepson, our high school newspaper teacher who was an aged hippie who smelled like marijuana and wore like jade necklaces, and talked about the way in which the press is important for keeping democracy alive, even in the context of a Florida high school. But you know, in my work as a reporter, I listened to MSNBC radio on the car ride today, and they played JD Vance's initial response. And it's just so funny to hear JD Vance talk about Walz as if he's some sort of like big city leftist or whatever. And just, for context, this is a guy, when he was in Congress, he represented a rural district in southern Minnesota. So he was like, when he was in Congress, he wasn't the congressperson for like the Twin Cities. He was a congressperson for rural Minnesota. Like, and if you don't know anything about Minnesota, I'll give you some context. The bottom of Minnesota is like Iowa, it's like farmland, fields, corn, the threat of tornadoes, things of that nature. Then you have the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, which are quite, urban, progressive, diverse cities. And then the top half of Minnesota is, kind of like Canada. You get big trees, you have lakes, people with guns, things of that nature. And eventually, the top of Minnesota borders Lake Superior. So when we compare to Vance, someone who is positioning himself as the good old boy of Appalachia, he's someone that went to Yale and then worked for hedge funds, for weird billionaires, and then helped make a movie in Hollywood. Walz is a guy who represented rural Minnesota, was a public school teacher, was in the National Guard in Minnesota, is an avid, hunter, was a high school football coach, kind of checks the boxes of like a character from a John Cougar Mellencamp song.
Yeah,
or something like that.
I saw someone describe him as like the first vice president to be the character from a sitcom who shows up in the third act to give you neighborly advice.
Yeah, like I saw someone say, I forget the name of the vice presidential house, like the Naval Observatory or something. But someone said something on Twitter, like if he wins, there will never be a leaky pipe or unfinished drywall in that house ever again. So, but if we really are talking, like if a certain subset of Americans, because we got to remember too, like the only candidate in the current election who's truly like a big city Ivy League guy is Donald Trump. Like Donald, like I think there's a funny contrast here. Like if the Republicans are the party of like working rural America, well, both of your candidates are Ivy League grads. Both of your candidates, your main candidate has lived in New York City almost his entire life. And when he's not there, he's in like resort locations. I mean, if we're talking about the urban elite, that's kind of what you got on that ticket. Now, not that Harris is a country bumpkin, but she's not from New York City. She didn't attend an Ivy League school. Walz did not attend an Ivy League school. And Walz, unlike Vance, didn't leave rural America to seek his riches on the coast. Walz just hung out in rural Minnesota and taught geography and coached football. There's also a story about Walz that I saw today. When he got his first teaching job, they would kind of prank new teachers. And the way they pranked him is they gave him a certificate to a local grocery store for a free turkey that they made as like a joke. And the joke, supposedly he would go to the store and try to get the free turkey and he wouldn't get it. And it would be funny. And one of the teachers said, but then the next day, Walz came back with a turkey. Because he's the sort of guy who showed up at his Minnesota grocery store with the fake certificate for a free turkey, and they gave the man a turkey. So I don't know. So if people like actually do care in any way about the idea of a veteran and teacher and sort of Midwestern man's man being in the White House, like he's the guy and Vance is not. I'm going to say something bold. I would bet my life that Vance cannot change the oil in a car. and I would bet my life that Tim Walz could change the oil in your car immediately. And he would know exactly what he was doing. People in rural America love football. I'm comfortable saying that. I do not think that JD Vance could draw up a play for the offense of your high school football team. I would bet you Tim Walz could pull out a clipboard.
That's a good one.
Walz could immediately draw up an offensive scheme for your high school football team. And he would also be able to take a look at the opposing defense and tell you where there might be some gaps. So if we're just and then even if we're going to talk about hunting, I think that if you wanted to go out and, hunt a 6-point buck, Walz would know what to do. Walz is someone who's doused himself in deer urine before. I do not think that Vance would know how to do that. So I just think if we're truly saying that people in America want, a rural small town guy, that's the guy. That's the guy right there. So there you go. Fun to talk about. Someone said free turkey Riz. Someone said Kelly was the guy too. Yeah, I think Kelly would have been the guy. I do think the big advantage of we have someone from Mankato here. Let's go. In my mind, the advantage of Walz over Kelly is better on education and labor. Chris Maverick says, Walz will sit you down and explain that games are won on special teams and make you understand after 25 minutes. Yeah, that's true. Hector Perez says, are you referring to the video where Walz fixes the headlight on a Ford, Michael? I didn't even know that video existed, but I knew. You know what I mean? But I knew that, of course, that video existed. So I don't know. I just think and I'm probably, listen, guys, I'm currently Midwest pilled. I'm Minnesota pilled. I'm Lake Water pilled. I spent an afternoon this weekend, drinking a Miller High Life in a sauna, like an old school, like Scandinavian style sauna where they were pouring water over hot rocks. And then I got to get out of the hot rock sauna where I was drinking a beer and jump in a cold lake where when I landed in the lake, there was a golden retriever swimming next to me, guys. This is what I'm coming out of right now. Yeah, guys, it was deep. I'm coming out of a situation where
that was like a transcendent experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm coming out of a place where 2 mornings ago, I was sitting outside on a swinging bench overlooking trees in the lake with my daughter. And then my cousin got back from a morning round at the 9-hole golf course on the lake where he brought me a to-go Bloody Mary that had a meat stick inside of it. This is the situation that I am coming out of right now. So yeah, so Sean says Michael's no longer a coastal elite for the next 30 days. 100%. I think this is where, I'm just telling you, this is where I'm at. Dustin Driver, I agree with you 100%. So I think that right now, I think sometimes I think the best that the Democratic Party could do is a guy like Walz, who's just like a dude, not some radical leftist organizer, but a dude who's just like, I think teachers should get paid more, and I think women should be able to have access to an abortion, and why not make marijuana legal? And healthcare should be, just a guy who's just like very pragmatic. He's not going to hit certain ideological points that people on the left are going to want. He's just not. The best you could say, or one thing you could say, is when 19% of Minnesota voters in the Democratic primary voted undecided or uncommitted or whatever as a sort of passive act of protest against Joe Biden's support of what's been going on in Gaza. When one asked about it, Walz was like, this is a good and important thing, and voters have a right to, show that they care about this. That's not some radical left thing, but it's a practical thing to do. Lori says my life is brat. My weekend was totally brat. But I don't know. I just think sometimes if we could have a former public school teacher in a position of political power and a former public school teacher who we know has pushed through legislation that prioritized children and women, who also, I guess, again, I'm Minnesota pilled. check in a couple weeks and see where I'm at. A guy who in the 90s in rural Minnesota, and for those of you who like went to school not in big cities in the 90s, like myself, the guy was the faculty sponsor for the Gay Straight Alliance at a small high school in Minnesota in the 90s and was a football coach. I went to high school in the early 2000s in Florida. I cannot fathom a world where one of the football coaches would have been faculty advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance.
Yeah, I
Can't
remember
even
like
fathom it.
I remember like Christian adjacent organizations and like student groups well into 2000,
Oh,
7ish.
well, you know who the football coaches from my high school, what they were the faculty advisors for?
What?
Fellowship of Christian Athletes. They were trying to pray the gay away. So yeah. So I just think like there's a lot of people. So for example, I'll just say like someone like JD Vance, I don't fucking buy it. I don't buy it.
Right.
I don't buy his whole stick. I don't think he gives two shits about working people. I don't think he gives two shits about rural people. I'll tell you why. Hasn't done anything for him. Hasn't been there. Hasn't lived there. Hasn't been on the ground. And I look at someone like Walz, and I'm just like, this is a dude who, in the '90s, as like an out of touch, Midwestern dad, was just like, well, hey, you need a faculty advisor to look out. Oh, yeah, for the Gay Straight Alliance? Sure. I love gay people. Will and Grace, hell of a show. Like fuck it. That sounds like a great guy. I would rather have that guy there because I believe it. I believe that he's not an evil corporate shill. I believe that he's not someone who's soullessly seeking power because he's 60 years old and we have a track record that shows that he's someone who, in general, not a perfect guy by any means, has done good stuff for people. And, he has a funky hipster vegetarian kid. So I don't know, guys. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he actually drinks Diet Mountain Dew, which is the funniest thing. On the radio this morning, they had an NPR politics reporter from Minnesota, and they were like, "What do you think?" And they were like, "And honestly, in Minnesota, like they described him as a quirky, corny guy who loves puns and weird jokes to make fun of his opponents, and is famous for loving Diet Mountain Dew," which I just love how it immediately undercuts the stupid thing of, Vance being like, I drank a Diet Mountain Dew. I guess that makes me not woke. And Walz is just like, what are you talking about? I got a 12er of that stuff at the Muni on my way up from Mankato. So, I love that someone said Walz equals young Bernie Sanders. I love the idea of Walz being young anything. But yeah, I don't know, guys.
I think there's something exciting to me about the potential shift in the Overton window because of the whole, school teacher vet and female black cop on a ticket against Trump and Vance. There's really, as far as like centristy, moderate, like the American normie or whatever, there's no real sane reason aside from like pre-existing religion or bigotry that you can really defend them in like a polite society way. The dog whistles are going to have to be remade. There's going to be like needs for new innuendo if there's any way to like defend Trump against something like that. Just like where can you really go policy wise or like personality wise?
Yeah. And then, Minnesotan here. Walz is a pick for human decency and a backbone. I was attending Minnesota State University Mankato when Walz upset Gundak for Congress. Love him. Thanks, Pesky. Yeah, but it's true. Like, there's all this talk about like human decency that's normally bullshit, and he's like actually that guy. Please like the stream if you haven't already, guys. We're over 30 minutes in. I haven't told you to do that. Again, this is Wisecrack Live's late Case of the Mondays, Case of the Tuesdays stream. We're here for you to give you a makeup. I was out of town doing on the ground reporting. We'll actually be streaming again tomorrow, guys. So get ready for a real back to back. We're going to stream a little longer than normal today because tomorrow I think we'll have to stream a little less potentially. And I want to make sure you get all your hours. I want you to get all your hours in this week. As always, you can check out our Patreon. Now that I'm back, Um, and some things are happening. I'm putting a new thing on Patreon soon. It's going to be exciting. The long awaited announced book club is happening. So there you go. That'll be happening over there. And then let me talk to you for a second. And I sadly don't have any with me right now about our coffee sponsor. And they are called Yes Please. Can we do the thing where we pull the website up?
I have the text on screen. I'll get that site in just a second.
Yeah, awesome. So I do want to tell you about something I love, which is coffee in the morning. And I'll tell you one thing that sometimes I don't like about when I travel and I go stay someplace else is having bad coffee. But then I feel like it's rude to bring your own coffee certain places. So, like, for example, I was really living the life at my uncle's cabin in Minnesota over the weekend. But the coffee was fine. It was like grocery store coffee and the thing, whatever. You're at the lake, you deal with it. But I had the thought of like, what would make this better? Having just badass, well-made coffee. And you know, when this morning I got home and I didn't sleep well last night. I mean, I slept well, but I was up late because the daughter was being a little demon baby. Had to get up and come here, but I got to make a cup of Yes Please this morning. I had the espresso roast, which you can also just make as a normal cup of coffee, and it was pretty transcendent to get up today, uh, learn about the Walz pick, drink that cup of Yes Please, get in the car and come here. Now, Yes Please is our coffee partner, and the reason I say partner is because they don't sponsor us. They don't give us money. They're a local group of people, 4 people that are employed full time there. They're based here in Southern California. They only sell coffee direct to consumers. I'm not shitting you when I say it's like the highest quality coffee you can get. It's not some bullshit service. The reason you don't see like ads for them is because they don't have enough money to buy ads because they're a small, no bullshit company that doesn't do corny stuff. It's not something where they like buy beans from some wholesaler but put them in like a package with a cool font and they're like, oh, this is cool. No, they're just like real people that do real shit. They're the Walls of coffee. But if you order Yes Please coffee, you get 20% off with the code Wisecrack. I highly recommend checking it out if you're a coffee person. We're hopefully working up some fun stuff with them soon. We might start doing some giveaways. So that's a real thing. I got to respond to some emails, but we might start doing a Yes Please giveaway on the show. So please do check out Yes Please coffee if you like and drink coffee. It is good. We like it. We like coffee. So there you go. And if you don't drink coffee, start now. Change your life forever. Get hooked on those beans. But truly, thanks for partnering with them. And we really love to like get to partner with a cool, smaller company that does good stuff. Okay, let's see. Yeah. I want to say a thing right now as well, guys. I'm going to say something. I've gotten 4 emails now in the past week from someone whose email address ends at viralbangers.com. And the guy said he came across my channel. I wanted to reach out and see if you wanted your next YouTube script written completely free. I've written scripts for Jordan Welch, Davey Fogarty, and Andy Stowery, among other big names in the drop shipping space. If you're interested, I'll shoot over a video that explains the details. I don't know. They keep writing me. Yeah, they keep writing me emails. This email says, "Hey Wisecrack, excuse my professional persistence. I promise this is the last time, so I'll keep it short. We can help you go viral on YouTube with our viral script writing system. The free video we scripted for Jordan Welch recently is sitting at 380,000 views. Title is Getting Rich is Easy, actually. And I'd imagine it did 6-figure in sales for Educate. If you're interested, I can write your next YouTube video free for you. Mind if I send you a 60-second video with more details over?" Brian from Viral Bangers. I'm tempted to just do it. Sure, write our next video for free. I guess I gotta respect the hustle, but what are we doing?
I mean, that sounds like some sort of identity theft ploy or channel theft ploy.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're gonna give us a script for free, and it's gonna give us 380,000 views.
Yeah,
I'm confused about the transaction. Even in the best faith, the terms aren't making sense to me.
And it's just true. You've never like looked at the channel, you know? You never looked at us. So I don't know, just fun emails. But you can email us at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Maybe don't do that. And codes is St. Paulite. It's been demoralized for Minnesota to become a test bed for far left policies. Michael is being a bit of a partisan hack, gassing up Walz. Still love Wisecrack. Honestly,
Gasp.
if you super chat $20, you can call me a piece of shit and I'll say thanks. So thank you, Encodes. Although I'm curious, Encodes, for real, I asked this as someone who was literally, before I went up to northern Minnesota, I was in the St. Paul area. And when we say far left policies, I don't know. When I was talking to my family there, who I'm considered the radical freak in my family, right? I don't descend from some line of lefties. I descend from a bunch of Midwestern Irish Catholic pragmatists who think that cops are important, just so you know where I'm coming from. But a lot, but I will say my family in Minnesota, half of that family are third generation teachers, going back generations. And these are teachers who used to make enough of a living as teachers, they were able to build their own cabins and stuff like that. And I will say that the people I know in Minnesota, not left wing, but they are educators, or they are related to educators. They have liked this guy, and they think he has done things that are good for the state. So when you say far left policies, I do know that some of these very moderate teachers, including a teacher who had a flag on their house that was it wasn't like a back the blue, but it was like a we respect cops flag. People like that think this guy is solid. So yeah, I don't know. But I'll tell you that the coffee we use is not drop shift. We would never use drop shift things. But a reminder for a good super chat, say anything and I'll say thanks. And just a reminder too, if you do a super chat, I'll say anything that's not offensive and that won't get me fired. Let's look at, so I have this video pulled up. I want to watch it only because it's from Care 11, the local affiliate for NBC in the Twin Cities. And they have a 2-minute video on who is Tim Walz. So I want to watch that. We can all learn who he is together. Yeah, I have it pulled up there. Awesome. Let's get to know him.
Election night 2022. Governor Tim Walz could not contain his exuberance over winning a second term, moving past turbulent times of a global pandemic and civil unrest.
Democracy is live and well in this state.
Yeah, I'm getting the audio on this is
okay, so that's the video itself. That's not us.
Yeah, the video is mixed left and right. So because I have in my headphones, I'm getting some of the stuff left, some right. In the chat, let us know if this sounds insane to you or if you can make it out.
Walz grew up in a small town in northern Nebraska, where at the age of 17, he joined the Army National Guard. He served in the Guard 24 years, all while embarking on a teaching career that in 1996 brought him to Minnesota, where he met his future wife and fellow teacher Gwen.
Imagine looking at that picture and being like, the far left is taking over America. Look at this freaking guy. You know what I mean? I heard on the radio today, they were like, when he got the call, he was at home having donuts and coffee with the family. I mean, this is a guy who is regularly said oh, hey there, Hank, I'll see you at the fish fry on Saturday. Look at this guy.
When he was still teaching geography and coaching football at Mankato West in 2006 when he ran for Congress in southern Minnesota's Republican-leaning 1st District.
Once in a generation, we have the ability to do something about it.
He unseated longtime incumbent Gil Goodneck and went on to spend 12 years in Congress.
Oh, good to see you.
In 2018, Walz launched his bid for governor on the theme of One Minnesota and made history by picking state rep Peg.
Oh, and his lieutenant governor's name is Flanagan. I mean, this is just an arrow named at the heart of the Midwest.
Flanagan, a member of the White Earth Ojibwe Nation, as his running mate.
Oh, wow. I feel bad because now I got excited that her name was Flanagan and is associated with the Irish, which is part of First Peoples Nation, so that rips too.
Elect Tim Walz.
He defeated Hennepin County Commissioner Jeff Johnson that November.
We are one Minnesota, better together.
The governor, First Lady Gwen Walz, and their children.
They got a dog and a cat too, so you don't have to choose. If you're a dog person or a cat person, you don't have to choose.
Gus and Hope moved to St. Paul, where Walz set about leading the charge for historic spending increases on schools, child care, and housing.
So like the first stuff he did was went after education. I do feel like a lot of politicians will talk about education and housing and like, you know, women's rights, all sort of stuff. And it kind of like goes to the back burner once they're in. So it's sick that he just got after it.
Extend today the stay-at-home order until May 4th.
During the COVID pandemic, he aggressively pursued testing and vaccines, but took heat from Republicans for his stay-at-home orders and closing schools and businesses.
That's a greater risk.
And in the
Okay, so this is the thing they're going to show a lot of.
unrest after George Floyd's murder, Walz drew criticism for delays activating the National Guard.
This force going in there escalated.
He won re-election in 2022, defeating Dr. Scott Jensen, and worked with the DFL-controlled legislature to sign a host of bills, strengthening abortion rights, tightening gun control, banning conversion therapy, restoring voting rights to felons, legalizing cannabis, and providing universal free school meals.
I want to go back to that little run through where they list his policies. I don't think any of them are like hella left, but it's just like, I think for a lot of younger folks, it's like a pretty cool record. Let's see.
Strengthening abortion rights, tightening gun control, banning conversion therapy, restoring voting rights to felons, legalizing cannabis, and providing universal free school meals.
Because once you let the kids have legal cannabis, you got to feed them. Look, could you imagine JD Vance not looking like a psychopath being surrounded by happy kids? Like, he just looks like a cool grandpa here, just like vibing. If I saw JD Vance there, I'd be like, something bad is afoot. Okay, so there's your introduction from the local Minnesota news station into Tim Walz. And, you know, again, we're here not to say that he is like the coolest guy ever. We're not here to be like, oh, we are supporting a candidate for whatever. Chris Maverick is crushing it today. Chris Maverick says, Tim Walz, noted MS-13 lieutenant, revolutionary member of the Black Panthers, communist organizer, and football coach of Mankato East.
If we weren't doing a Walz episode, we'd be getting blamed for platforming Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, we would. You know, we can't win. But once you know that you can't win, life gets easier. The radical left Maoist contingent wants your students to have breakfast. What's up, Eric? Thank you for being a member. You know, I don't know. Hey, we're at 666. Let's go. Because another thing the wall stands for.
Tuesday of the Beast.
Yeah, Tuesday of the Beast. Listen, why do we get excited about 666? Because it's a funny bit. That's it. We're not Satanist because if anything, what maybe the idea of Satan represents is the fall of divinity. And what does divinity represent? By a certain metric, we could say that divinity represents an overarching, an ordered metaphysical structure with a strict teleology that fits you into a certain place. And the satanic is maybe the deconstruction of that strict theological metaphysical structure that creates the zone for freedom. Is it good? Is it bad? It's neither. It's just freedom, ladies and gentlemen. So let's have some fun with it. It's a Tuesday and we're hanging out. We haven't gotten Raw Dome in forever. I think the last time we got Raw Dome is a stream where we talked about Kendrick and Drake, and that morning I had to like float with my colleagues, guys. I'm gonna do a rap stream, and it was kind of like, oh boy, Michael. I think that their vibe was like, well, we gotta give him one. Oh, thank you, Wonder Platypus. Their vibe was like, we got sometimes you gotta like, we gotta let Michael have his little things so he stays chill, and they let me have the rap stream, and then we got Dome.
And the numbers were great, so take that.
Yeah. And then I got in a meeting with my colleagues, and I just one by one was like, fuck you, and fuck you. Never again. No, I'm kidding. I would never talk like that to them. I like them far too much. Yeah, if anyone else has thoughts on the Walz thing, let us know. It's just kind of a fun thing to get into and talk about. Someone said they not like us needs to be at the DNC. I was joking the other day with a friend that I hope if my daughter ever gets married and we do the, patriarchal ritual of the daddy daughter first dance, we do it to they not like us. That would be my ultimate dream. Um, got some great emails recently too. I'll just run through a few of them. Our buddy Michael, not me, I'm not referring to myself. I didn't email the show myself. So let's have a light old time just chilling and looking at the comics and the ideas behind them. And he sent us a link to Existential Comics. I think that's a fun idea because I did ask for ideas for like just a happy episode. So he sent one, and we'll maybe look at this. I'm gonna send this link over to Henry. So before the stream ends today, we're gonna hit this existential comic and have a happy time. I really appreciate that, and also too, like, thanks for sending stuff over. Really appreciate that. It's fun for us to get recommendations from you and see what sort of stuff you're into, might want us to talk about. Yeah, JD, I said Jay-Z. Jay-Z hit us up and said, "Hey, it's me and Beyonce." You boy. Jay-Z did not hit us up. Our friend JD said, "Hey, producer Henry and Michael, hope you're having a lovely day. Just wanted to say I've been watching your content fast 8 years with my partner. Keep up the good work. Kind regards, JD." Thank you so much. That means a lot. Our dream is that you guys just like sometimes, whether live or after the fact, watch or listen to this and just have a nice time with it and feel like there's some other humans in the world that are, at least I hope you feel. I hope you either feel A, good that there's some other folks in the world who are in your orbit, kind of like some of the stuff you like, think about stuff the way you think about it, and that makes you feel less alone. Or I hope that you listen and watch us and you think like, I don't agree with most of the stuff these guys say, but you know what? It's a good hang. I hope either of those are true. Our friend Callie hit us up to say that I said recently I had an issue remembering if he took his pills. Oh yeah, last week's stream was the maximum dose of Concerta stream. I definitely can confirm I double dosed last week. And I got home from work and my wife was asking me stuff and I just had to be like, listen, I'm locked in right now. I am Bradley Cooper from Limitless. I feel nothing, but if you have a list of tasks you want me to accomplish, I will. I will say last week as well, after the stream, I went and saw John Mellencamp, Bob Dylan, and Willie Nelson at the Hollywood Bowl. Seeing Bob Dylan was cool. I think seeing Bob Dylan is weird because he plays a lot of songs you might not want to hear him play. He sits behind an organ. He sometimes turns his back to the audience. The cameras don't like zoom in on him. But I got to see Bob Dylan play a Grateful Dead song the day before Jerry Garcia's birthday. He played the song Stella Blue at the Hollywood Bowl. So that was cool. And I saw Willie Nelson. Guys, Willie Nelson's 91 years old and he's like good. Shouts to, Austin's own, good friend of producer Henry, Willie Nelson and his family. And he like rips solos on his, old nylon string guitar like a G. I think Tim Walz has a Willie Nelson-esque thing. And let me tell you why. You're going to think I'm being crazy here. Willie Nelson's like a dude from Texas who by many metrics is like a country, a guy who appeals to rural America, but he also just like wants to smoke weed, thinks it's totally chill if you're gay or trans or whatever, and thinks it's most important to like treat people well and have a good time. So if Nelson is still around if they win the election, maybe they invite him to the inauguration. But Callie said it would be a fun idea if Michael got one of the Patreons. Got one that Patreon can bedazzle their pillboxes together and might make me join the. Okay, so we might have a Patreon only bedazzling pillbox party. I like that. We got an email from Dylan. Dylan said on last week's stream, you said something about along the lines of being able to do analysis of conservative philosophy through intellectuals like Kierkegaard and Hume, maybe Locke. So last week we were talking, there was a discussion about, like we always have, about philosophy and politics and the way these things relate. And I pointed out that, it's not that we cherry pick philosophers and theorists because we want to advocate for more progressive intellectual or political ideals. It's that tends to be the way historically philosophy swings. but there are examples of relatively conservative philosophies and philosophers. But Dylan said, I'm curious what makes these figures conservative philosophers or conservatives in the traditional sense. For me, I think what makes some philosophers more conservative, I mean conservative in the traditional sense, not what it means if we talk about the American Republicans or the Conservative Party in the UK. Because I think when we say conservative now, we might think about like, evangelically Christian, motivated, pro-business, anti-women, vaguely white supremacist parties that like mumble blood and soil as they ejaculate. When we say conservative in a more classical sense, I think what we're talking about is people who are wary of structural revolution, whether that be in the realm of ideas or the realm of politics. Conservatives who, I think when we think about like philosophical conservatism, it's almost like a classicism, a desire for what was, or the desire to reinstate that which was, rather than a desire to create the conditions for the emergence of the new. I'll say that again because I think this works. Conservative philosophy is more of a desire to reinstate that which once was, rather than a desire to create the conditions for the emergence of the new. Because the new means something totally new, something different, something that could potentially reconfigure the way we live now. And I do think there are philosophers that have historically thought like, hey, kids, let's pump the brakes, focus on what we can know or we can think, because we're getting a little big for our britches. That's why a lot of Anglo-analytic philosophy is more conservative in that classical sense of the term, because their concern is less like, how do we break free of pre-existing systems and do something new? It's more like, let's look backwards and think about how language actually works and see what we can do with it. And let's be really careful about that. I don't think that is bad, but I do think structurally it's more conservative. Dylan's email goes on to say, I'm curious, part of it because I'm reading a book on German idealism in preparation for when high school starts this fall, but also for, God, this is a question from a high schooler? Dylan, I wish I could form questions and ideas like this when I was a high schooler. When I was a high schooler, I had a notebook where I was like, what are my top names as a white rapper? What could my white rapper name be? And Dylan's reading books on German idealism. Jesus Christ, kid. And he's also taking some community. Oh yeah, better understand the contextual perspective, which Hume and Kierkegaard influence on Kant, and someone influenced Hegel respectively wrote from. I mean, Hume, I don't want to biff when I talk about Hume. Someone I used to teach, haven't read in a while, Dylan, but David Hume, great philosopher, Scottish guy, Enlightenment figure. I think the coolest thing about Hume is that he kind of says to a lot of folks in philosophy, like, let's pump the brakes and focus on the practicalities of how we actually know stuff and what the limits of that knowledge are. So Hume would say, and sorry guys, it's philosophy time. So let's say here's a wrapper for the Nature Bakery bar. Oh, actually, no free ads. I had a snack earlier, but I have the wrapper for the snack and I drop it and it falls. Now I would probably say, I'm confident that anytime I drop this, it would fall. Why? Because of the law of gravity. Hume might say, but really though, is that the case? He would say, or is it the case that you have seen things fall before and you've seen enough things fall that you've developed an intellectual habit of assuming that same thing will happen again. Now, Hume might say, you could say it's absolutely likely that would happen, but the reason you can't say with any certainty is because you do not have access to the law of gravity. I could maybe describe the law of gravity, but he would almost say, like, but you don't see that law. You haven't observed that law. You've observed the effect of the thing, but not the cause. So Hume kind of wants to draw a line between cause and effect. And there is an implicit conservatism in so much as it's limiting the scope of what we're able to know and how we're able to know it. But I think Hume, in a weird way, is also that sort of conservatism is one that would also shy away from fascism, because you couldn't really do this like absolute Christo-fascist thing if all you know is effects and not causes. With Kierkegaard, the conservatism you get on his end is like he really does think that there's a truth value to Christianity. He really does think that when people get caught up in revolutionary movements, sometimes they lose a connection with themselves and their own individual subjectivity. And you could argue, I wouldn't argue this, but you could rightfully or at least convincingly argue that philosopher Soren Kierkegaard, Danish guy, we made a video a few weeks ago that was kind of about him, put so much emphasis on the self that it de-emphasizes society and collective thinking. My book argues something else, and as always, you're allowed to illegally download my book. Please don't pay for it. And if you download my book and you really like it, just send me $5 on Venmo or something like that. And let's see. Wow. Sorry, Dylan. This is a great question. Dylan also said he's reading about dialectical materialism, historical materialism, and other woke commie Marxist theory shenanigans. Further, any tips forward? Let's see. If you're learning Marx, David Harvey's lectures on Capital are really good. A lot of them are on YouTube. There's also a collected volume of those published by Verso. Also, guys, this isn't happening yet. Pretty soon, you're going to be able to get a bunch of Verso books for 40% off because of what you and I have. So if you're thinking of ordering some Verso books soon, maybe pump the brakes. Yeah, but that's forthcoming. It's on my to-do list for this week. I think that's true. Louis Althusser, French philosopher, pretty interesting on these things. I don't always agree with him, but he has some interesting stuff to say. If you want to be real, actually, I was going to give a recommendation that's a little too wild. We'll hold off on that one for now. In terms of contemporary materialist philosophy, check out Adrian Johnston. He has, he has like a 2 or 3 book series called, let me look him up right now because I want to tell you the right titles. And I'm going to be a big douche now and tell you that I'm one of the names thanked in one of the good books.
E-Man R in the chat asks, would Hume contest empiricism?
No. Adrian Johnston book to read, Prolegomena to Any Future Materialism. Volume, and there's a 3-part series, but maybe check that out. No, Hume was an empiricist. So he would not be into it. Someone said you need to have a basic knowledge of philosophy to read your book. Yeah, you do. It's kind of boring. My man Drift King 305, who I consider the real Rick Ross of the Miami area. So why do people have such a fascination with Marx? You know what the real issue is right now? Is I think people are fascinated with Marx because so many people say that he's the devil and he's the worst. And what I mean by that is like in the 90s, right? I was alive when it was a thing where parents were freaked out about Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg's The Chronic. Classic album, right? But there was a panic around that album. And, there was a panic around Metallica. And, like, kind of at the same era. There was a panic around rap music and there's a panic around metal music. And you know what that made people want to do? Listen to rap music and or metal music. You know what I mean? The same way you hear some movie is, like, controversial. It's like a Lars von Trier film comes out and you're in your early 20s and everyone's talking about it. You're like, well, fuck, I got to watch that movie, or it's like Two Girls, One Cup. But when, like, I think that's one of the reasons, to answer Drift King 305's question, one of the reasons people want to read Marx is like, if you say that you shouldn't read someone and they're bad and they're crazy, people are like, oh, I got to see this. I got to see what's going on here. And then I think what happens is when people do read certain works of Marx, they're like, oh, this isn't like crazy satanic stuff. It's kind of technical and boring, but some of it seems oddly apt. Like, I used to do an evil thing, speaking of Marx, when I taught, where I would, on like the projector, I would intersperse lines from Jesus and lines from Marx. And I would ask students to guess who said what. And I'm not kidding you when I say there are things that Marx said that a very well-intentioned 19-year-old Christian will be like, that sounds like a Jesus thing. because a lot of it's kind of chill, especially the early stuff is very like, humanist and stuff. Now, I think, and Drifting 305, totally. I think, and for those who don't know, Miami, Florida, the Dade County area, one of the biggest populations of Cubans in the world, and a lot of those people got the hell out of there due to the Castro regime and moved to Miami. And because of that, there is a lot of negativity towards the idea of communism in that voting bloc. And I would say, if anything, it's interesting to read someone like Marx if you do come from a background where you were like, oh, me and the fam got the fuck away from that. And you'll probably read Marx and be like, oh, if anything, you'll be like, this is kind of boring. But you definitely reading Marx aren't going to be thinking like, oh, that's where Castro got that from. Chris Maverick did that thing with Trump and Ric Flair. That rules. Alley Cattails, I first heard the Chronic with a friend's older cousin. So there you go. Yeah, Ann Porkin said was discouraged from watching Adult Swim, so I watched every episode of C-Lab 2021. C-Lab 2021, I think, is the thing that maybe helped me shape, I don't know, my personality. Wonder Platypus, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And hey, if you're tuning in, just letting you know, this is Wisecrack. This is like a hybrid Wisecrack live case of the Mondays. We're here on a Tuesday because I wasn't here on Monday. I was traveling yesterday, went out of town, lived the Walz lifestyle. And we're doing this now. Laurie Christian brings up the character in Andor that was basically a Marxist in Star Wars form. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think there's a lot of people who would watch Andor, and I forget the name of that character, but would hear the things that character would say about living under an empire and wanting to resist against that. That would be like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. And in a weird way, that was like Marxy stuff that he was saying. So, there you go. But yeah, just a reminder, we do this show normally on Mondays. I'm always here with producer Henry. We stream on Wednesdays as well. We will be here tomorrow, so you're going to be getting a whole heap of us. Maybe tomorrow we'll talk about the Trump and Aiden Ross thing. Let us know if you want to hear that. A thing Henry has loaded, which I don't want to get into now, but because I don't want to get into this now because it's probably worth looking into, is the Project 2025 video that Legal Eagle made. Feels like a different life ago that we made a video, with Devin from Legal Eagle. I sat here in the room with him. Still the most devastating thing I've ever heard in my life. Our old producer, Griffin, who works for, what's the show called now?
Breaking
Do you know
Points?
the thing Griffin works? Breaking Points. Yeah, sorry, my brain just farted for a second. Works for Breaking Points now. Was running that shoot, and I was shooting with Devin from Legal Eagle, and he said, seeing you and him together on the monitor was like watching an established adult man next to an 8th grade boy. Because he wears suits, and I wear t-shirts I buy in parking lots outside of concerts from guys who use the money I give them to buy acid. But that's where we're at. So this is, we got another email. It's just called Stuff from Fry. Hopefully I'm not saying their name wrong. It says, I love Wisecrack, and for what it's worth, I think, well, they basically think, I'm not going to quote this person exactly. They think that they basically just said that the era of Wisecrack that I've been around for is good, which is very nice of them. And they say that channels like ours, and I love that they make this note, despite corporate ownership and other channels like IDK, Learning Economics, Climate Town, Yellow Dot are amazing for the work you do. Sometimes, however, for us with middling followings, it's hard to platform your stuff, especially if one isn't on the site formerly known as Twitter. I could really go for some bite-sized shorts, reels, excerpts to try and share your stuff on, in particular Instagram and TikTok. That's a great idea. I realize time is a valuable resource. Maybe it's hard to find the time, but for instance, I would love to repost, share the story of the Exxon faux job interview, but no one has done a video on it as any short form content. How do you feel about not copyright friendly excerpts made to drive people to your videos? Just checking. I don't care, and I think it's probably fine.
Please
And
share
then
our
this person,
stuff.
yeah, for now, just share it. I don't know. I don't think you're gonna get in like trouble. This person said, I'm super curious about what the BetterHelp controversy was, but I assume it's something like the owners going, no, we want the dirty money. No hints about ethical doubtfulness in live stream. Anyway, time is probably short. Don't feel obligated to reply. Just some thoughts. I finally signed up for Patreon. Thank you so much for doing that. For the BetterHelp thing, for anyone who's wondering, we were doing ads with BetterHelp because they gave us money and we need money. And we were getting a really negative reaction to those videos. And it wasn't just a few comments. It was like hundreds of comments of people being like, this feels bad and sucks. So we, and big shouts to producer Olivia, our buddy here, kind of just said to the channel or to people that are above us, like, hey, we think we should stop working with them. We think that it just kind of contradicts with the values of our channel. And one of the arguments I basically made was, I think a value that we have at Wisecrack is that you guys know that we and that I, in general, am not full of shit. That we have a set of values. We're not without bias. We're not objective, and that while we have to sacrifice values sometimes, I guess, to an extent to make money to stay alive. But that we felt like continuing to work with BetterHelp would become an issue of audience trust and could eventually lead to could like undermine the value of our content. I had a lot of back and forth, some of which got pretty uncomfortable. Myself and producer Olivia had to be in some weird conversations. But I will say, for those who are maybe like skeptical of, because we're owned by a company called Enthusiast Gaming. Up the ladder, people rode for us very hard. So, our head of content was like 100% on our side. The CFO of this company, oh fuck, I shouldn't say that. Fuck, that was really bad. I will just say
It's a position. We don't know why that was brought up at all as part of that story.
That's a job.
But that's just a job that exists here.
It exists. It's a job that exists. Pilot is a job that exists. Doctor, job that exists. List some jobs that exist in the comments to distract from this. But I will just say that people at this company in general rode hard for us. So that was very cool. I will say, like, if you are in this team of like, how can I support you guys or things I can do, I'm not trying to be silly when I say this. If you're a coffee drinker, just drink Yes Please coffee. I think officially 40 of you have bought some Yes Please coffee, which truly rips. And we're so excited for you. Pastry chef, job. Policeman, job. Visitor cleanup detail, job. Musician, job. Pottery barn cashier, job. Beekeeper, job. There we go. Fuck. Lori reminded me of the Canadian factory. Don't make me go back there. It was triggering being so close to the Canadian border in Minnesota. All these jobs. Look at them. They're just jobs. Like the stream if you haven't already. Stream liker is a job. That's a job. Slopper, Porkins. Took you long enough. But yeah, get like Yes Please. If you have the money to support us, the easy stuff you can do is like order coffee from Yes Please. Get a little kickback there. The other thing I would say is, consider the Patreon if you want to. Also, if you guys see ads or if you see like partners, the channels you like are working with, hit us up because I want to reach out to like, here's the thing, we have to have, ads in videos to stay alive. We have to. So the goal is, who can we work with that stuff you guys might use? Because my mindset is like, there's stuff that we all use. If we can find a company that makes the thing that we use anyways, and we can get a little like discount and it helps us, why the fuck not? So if there's stuff, and it has to be a sort of company that, is doing like podcast and YouTube ads. But if stuff pops up that you see on another channel and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Whoa, Sean binge watched Andor while dosed. That's a hell of a time. That's a hell of a time right there. That's a choice you made. Oh, I just got water in my eye. Oh, Just money shotted myself with H2O. Okay. Drift King said, I've been following for so long. First video I subscribed to was because of the Nissan Maverick review here. Thank you. Thank you for being a Drift King 305. Yeah.
Nice
Fan.
Automata. Nier's excellent. That's the I understand the typo there. Just great.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at this existential comic we got sent. And again, thank you to Michael who sent this to us. Whenever you email, I try to not use last names because I don't know what you want. If anyone ever like wants me to say your last name, you know, if that'll make your dad proud, if I say your last name, just say it. So it's an existential comic. It says a philosophy comic about the inevitable anguish of living a brief life in an absurd world. So let's go panel by panel. This is from PNN, presumably Philosophy News Network or Penis Not Numb. I'm going to stick with Philosophy News Network. Yeah, Penis Not Needed. Breaking news. Philosopher William James has been accused of using performance-enhancing drugs and is being banned from international philosophy. On the bottom chyron, it says Philosophy Union wins long battle for better pay, safer thinking conditions. James was subject to drug testing after claiming he could understand Hegel and allegedly failed multiple tests. We have Bertrand Russell on the scene. Bottom chyron, Microsoft's AI philosopher shuts down after asking why huge corporations control AI. There's also some AI stuff that I've been thinking about. Maybe we'll talk about soon. I saw someone talking about how if AI is fed AI for its information source, it very quickly becomes absolute bullshit nonsense. But there you go. And I did notice too, in my normal life, I don't watch a lot of commercials, but I was watching commercials. We're watching Olympics on TV at the lake. A lot of like AI commercials now. There's one for Meta where a person like takes a picture of their fridge and is like, hey Meta, what recipe can I make with these ingredients? And another lady's in bed and she looks all lazy and she's like, hey, design me a marathon training program. It's just like, what are we doing? Like, is there go ahead, Henry. Sorry.
I keep getting the Google one that advertises that you can get a picture of a cat playing a guitar.
Well, that's fun. But like, is the future we want truly one where like, for example, you know, there's not like people that train us to run. We don't have people that are what do you call them? Exercise coaches, whatever it might be, where we don't have people that write about food, that develop recipes. AI, you know, just does that for us. There's one where someone like has AI write them up notes for a presentation. It's just like, guys, we're just not thinking this one through. We're just not thinking this one through. And I don't know how far it's going to go. I'm going to say, I'm going to go to Conspiracy Corner, which is this corner. It's a new feature, Michael's Conspiracy Corner. I think we need some sort of strict AI regulation. Okay. I saw the anime prequel they made to The Matrix that shows how they got there.
Yeah, Second Renaissance.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at this conversation between James and Bertrand Russell. William James, I have to ask, did you take performance-enhancing substances? I categorically deny that. I merely took an over-the-counter drug that triggered the test. I'm curious where this is going. How do you explain that you are the only philosopher to understand Hegel? Since Hegel himself. I don't know if that was, I'm not super familiar with James, to be honest, so I'm wondering if that's a reference to James making a claim about how he understood Hegel. Let's do a quick Google. William James plus Hegel. Google sucks now, though, so what's going to show me? William James took Hegel, blah, 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 to be his opponents. Okay. Were you on drugs when you came up with the pragmatic theory of truth? Hard work, natural talent. I have no further comment. There's an explanation at the bottom. It says James faces a 10-year ban from thinking, which if upheld, will also revoke the pragmatic theory of truth from the canon. Truth will have to go back to being a correspondence between a word and an object. I do understand what that means. A pragmatic theory of truth is that like the meaning of a thing has like a pragmatic meaning or value, a sort of usefulness to it. I do think if this is related to like a Humean empiricism, and then when it says truth will go back to being a correspondence between word and object, truth in a certain way of thinking is the correlation of concept and object. And we do get this to an extent like the Hegelian tradition, where that's like what truth is, and that's what understanding is when we have a conceptual structure, often a word that correlates to like a metaphysical object or event. Bottom says Google stock plummets after promising shareholders they will behave ethically. Join us next week as we discuss gender. What is it? Do you need it? And can it kill you? And the bottom says Peter Singer arrested for suspicions of unethical thought experiments on animals. Peter Singer said you could fuck an animal. The bottom says William James took many different drugs in his life. That's sick. Leading him. Okay, it's not sick. It can be cool in certain contexts to hypothetically explore substances that might not be available at your local pharmacy. You only want to do so in a very careful and thoughtful way, and you never want to mess with stuff that kills people. If a friend's ever like, do you want to do this thing? Maybe Google, does this thing ever kill people? If the answer is yes, just don't do it. I would say is a pretty down the line thing. If the answer is no one's ever died. Some people have had like a bad time. Well, then think about the thing and think about how you're doing the thing. And are you setting yourself up for conditions where you're going to have a bad time? But Sean in the chat could help you out with this more than I could. It says, leading him to have mind-altering, even mystical experiences. Most of this is pretty normal stoner stuff. He found the unity of all things, blah, blah, blah. Strangely, though, he claimed, this is interesting. He claimed he was only able to understand Hegel. I did not know this. While under the influence of nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide, a huge thing in the Grateful Dead scene. If you ever go to like a jam band show, like Dead, Fish, whatever, you'll see sketchy looking people with big tanks selling balloons of nitrous outside, often calling them ice cold fatties. So it says, so I don't know, if you're a student who is struggling, something to consider. I guess if any of you ever like do, nitrous, let us know if it affects your philosophical understanding. But thank you, Michael, for sending that to us. Send other stuff you want us to check out on the stream at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. We got to stream again tomorrow, guys. So we need content. We need content.
I'll do some whippets and come to a new understanding of things.
Yeah, I like how Sean caught up right as I directly referenced him as a drug sensei on chat. Well, there you go. If you haven't liked the stream yet, please do like the stream. Now, we have a video coming out on Friday. I want to get you ready for it. It's a video on political violence. It is not a how-to, you psychos, okay? Get it together. But it's a video on political violence inspired by the attempted assassination of Trump's ear. And in the video, we kind of look at how we're maybe misunderstanding the discussions around political violence. I know that has died down in the media discourse. It always feels sometimes like taking a risk to talk about something that we know the news cycle is going to blaze by. But in the video, and if you're kind of a philosophy theory person, we talk about some fun stuff in the video. We talk about John Brown, the Haitian Revolution, Frantz Fanon, and get at this idea that when we talk about political violence, and this is me kind of like spoiling the video, but there's a lot more going on there, that we often focus on individual actions by non-state actors. And we say political violence is, Thomas Crooks. Political violence is random guys shooting up a grocery store because he's racist. Political violence is Timothy McVeigh, whatever it might be. But we don't often think political violence is U.S.-supported coups or juntas. Political violence is, the undermining of other nations. Political violence is, violent, militarized police forces that disproportionately commit violence on people of color. And in a way, it seems like an argument that can be made here is the media and politicians, they don't have a problem with political violence. They have a problem with political violence that they don't control. The problem with political violence is when a non-state sponsored agent does the bad thing. But as long as a state does what in other hands would be terrorism or assassinations or coups, then we're fine with it. So it's a little heavy. We get into some ideas there. It's one of those videos that's sort of like, let's consider the other side a little bit. I don't know. So that's going to come out on Friday. We also have a video coming out next week on the new, well, I'll give you the gist here. Talking about sponsors. We got hit up by Disney, my favorite company. You can Google or YouTube Wisecrack plus Disney to know more about that. To celebrate the release of their new film, Alien Romulus, which I'm kind of excited to see because I like Kaylee Spaney a lot. It also looks fucking terrifying. But in that, we basically use it as an excuse to talk about what aliens and space represent in the popular mythos. And one thing we kind of get at is, and we even get into like Eugene Thacker's cosmic pessimism by the end of the video. For those of you who've read that before, it was a big inspiration for season 1 of True Detective. But we talk about how space in a certain era of at least American political and cultural life represented optimism and hope and yada yada. But then space started to represent like weird corporate cynicism. And then it started to represent just this terrifying other place. Why are we going there? Who are these people? And of course, when we think about space, we think about the alien, and the figure of the alien has a lot of political resonance to it. We can talk about that. But those are our next 2 videos. I forget what's coming after that. But I do know that in about 23 hours, we will be streaming again right here. Myself and producer Henry. Because I'm in studio today, I'll probably be at home tomorrow. So you can get ready for that, you know? I guess our final note today is like, listen, guys, in electoral politics, especially in a country like the United States of America, you're not going to get the person you want, at least at this point in history. But with someone like Tim Walz as a VP pick, it could be a lot worse. I recommend looking up the video of him and his daughter at the Minnesota State Fair. In the meantime, I think I retweeted that today. So you can go over to Michael O. Burns on Twitter, find Henry on Twitter, follow Wisecrack on Twitter if you don't already. And then, today I'm going to give the final word to Henry and then he can sign us off. So Henry, what do you got for the people?
I've been enjoying catching up on offline activities, and I'm going to continue to do so this week, but I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I feel there's, at least this week, a positive vibe shift in the air, and I hope everybody continues writing that into the next stream.
See you guys tomorrow.